Aubrey has spent 15 years working in the e-commerce, marketing automation, and fintech industries with stops along the way at Adobe, Oracle, NetSuite, and several startups. So Aubrey is going to talk about nuggets for mining Adobe Commerce for Omnichannel marketing wins. So enjoy the talk. Thanks.
All right, we got our clicker. Make sure I know how to use it. All right, we did it. Hi, everyone. I am Aubrey Allman. Appreciation for the introduction. Today, kind of what I wanted to go through, I don't know if you attended, I've done a couple of these presentations over the last couple of Meet Magentos. Last year I did one on AI. The year before that, we did one specifically on SMS as a channel. We're going to touch on some of that today. But I kind of wanted to take things back to the basics a little bit today. I think that for merchants and for agencies and for some of the technology partners that we work with, we tend to take our eye off the ball a little bit around the absolute freaking gold mine that is Adobe Commerce, right? We take it for granted that it's going to be able to generate all of this data, and we forget about just how useful that information can be when you start thinking about applying it in a variety of different channels and things like that. To get us started, I want to just talk about a cool story conversation that I had. So I was talking to this mid-level sort of marketing director at Coca-Cola recently. And they mentioned that their goal is to present their logo to the consumers that are within their regions that they're working within 100 times a day, without fail, across the globe. And initially, I kind of, if you start to think about it, 100 times a day, that's ridiculous. That's absurd. That is a level of brand saturation that kind of breaks my mind to a certain extent. But the story, it's kind of like a pop song, like a Chapel Rowan song that gets stuck in your head, et cetera. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so yesterday when I was flying up from North Carolina and I was coming to New York, I was like, all right, I'm gonna test it. I want to see how many times I see Coca-Cola. I got out of bed, 5:30, was on an early flight, et cetera. And I started to count where I was seeing the Coca-Cola brand. And I saw it on my way to the airport. I saw it once I got to the airport. I saw it on the Delta flight because they got the beverage cart coming through and I had a Diet Coke. And I saw it here and I saw it there. And it was ridiculous. Before 2 p.m. yesterday, I had actually counted 100. By the time I went to bed last night around 11 o'clock, I had seen the Coca-Cola brand more than 150 times. And I would hazard to guess that the customers that you're working with, or if you're a merchant yourself, et cetera, no, you don't necessarily have the brand reach of a Coca-Cola. You don't necessarily have the budget of a Coca-Cola, et cetera. But what I really respect about the way that Coca-Cola handles this is that no matter where you're seeing that brand consistently. So if you're on a beach in Thailand, you're seeing that Coca-Cola brand the same way that you would see it at Yankee Stadium. You're seeing it the same way that you would see it at a UNC basketball game, et cetera. And I think there are some takeaways that we can take from this sort of larger strategy from a Fortune 10 company, et cetera, and apply that to some of the information that's available within Adobe Commerce. I think it's always good to make sure we're all reading from the same playbook. So I do want to talk about when I'm talking about omni-channel marketing, what am I talking about, right? So to me, the idea of omni-channel marketing is essentially delivering a consistent, seamless, unified, and integrated customer journey across all of the different channels and devices and platforms that your customers are going to be utilizing. And how do you drive that? You ensure that your marketing plans, your content, your data, your goals, your objectives, et cetera, are all really well aligned. And so that no matter when you're talking to your customers, you're engaging with them on the places where they want to talk to you, and you're delivering, just like Coca-Cola, that really consistent experience across all of those different touch points. And when we think about omnichannel, why is it important? I mean, it's important because it's 2024, right? People not only want to use a variety of different channels when they're engaging with the various brands that they end up buying from, et cetera, but they're doing more of it, and they are higher value folks. So 89% retention rate, 82% of in-store shoppers are using smartphones as sort of like a virtual assistant for price shopping, higher click-through rates, increased spending, et cetera. Like, this is how people shop in 2024. And if you're not delivering an omnichannel experience, then your competitors, I almost guarantee you, are, and you are leaving opportunity on the cutting room floor. You don't have to take my word for it. McKinsey, obviously, as you would expect, has done some research on this. I think the thing that I really liked from this is that when you think about like something simple, like just like booking a hotel room, people were utilizing and switching between 6 different sites to make a decision about sort of like where they were going to stay. And I can attest to this. When I was coming, I ended up staying at the Freehand in Gramercy, but I was checking on like our corporate website, and I was checking on Booking.com and Kayak, et cetera. And I was getting push notifications to my phone from some of the different apps that I use around, like, different hotels that were available, et cetera. Like, we all do this, and we all know that this is like fundamentally true, right? When you think about like some of the purchasing experiences that you may have had, you're probably looking at something on your phone, on your desktop, et cetera. So how do we get started? Well, the great news is that for customers that are already utilizing Adobe Commerce, like, you've taken the first step. So if you're an agency partner and you've got somebody on Adobe Commerce, that's awesome. If you are a technology partner that's well integrated into Adobe Commerce, that's awesome, because you've got this incredibly robust e-commerce platform that is just hoovering up all kinds of interesting data and touch point information, et cetera, about your contacts. The second piece is that you need to be working with a partner who can deliver on an omnichannel experience. Now, I think it's full caveat before we go any farther forward. I work for Dotdigital. Dotdigital is a customer experience data platform. We've been partners with Adobe Commerce for more than a decade. Initial integration was into 1.6. And we work with thousands of Adobe Commerce customers across the globe. So when I'm talking about some of these data strategies, et cetera, I am talking about it through the lens of sort of like what I know is possible with Dotdigital. But I've also previously worked for Magento, and I kind of have a good sense of, generally speaking, like what different platforms are capable of doing. So today is designed to be not Dotdigital specific, but rather, what are some generally accepted good strategies that your customers can take on and be able to execute on? We're going to be talking about 5 specific concepts. We're going to be talking about customer groups. We're going to be talking about abandoned carts, how to unlock SMS, price and restock alerts, and transactional messaging consistency. Is it safe to assume that everyone in this room is familiar with customer groups? All right, cool. I see like nodding. Yes. All right, cool. I love customer groups, right? So like when I used to work for Adobe Commerce, it was one of the things that people got like most jazzed about, like when we were going through the pre-sales process, because it's this really easy way that's built into Adobe Commerce of being able to segment your audience, right? So I want to segment my audience based on customer lifetime value. I want to segment my audience if I'm a B2B retailer on, whether or not they have pre-negotiated pricing with me. I want to segment my audience based upon whether or not I want to show them an incentive on this site. And there's all these different like use cases and ways of being able to use it directly within Adobe Commerce. But one of the problems with Adobe Commerce and one of the fallbacks of customer groups is that, unlike this picture here, if you have a contact in Adobe Commerce, it can't be in multiple customer groups at the same time. Like, one person has to be tied to one customer group, and you can't have any crossover. And that makes it a little bit difficult sometimes as a marketer, because like I may have people that want to be in multiple customer groups. I want to market to these people differently, or I want to set up conditional logic, et cetera, around like sort of like these concepts. This is a really great place where your marketing platform comes in handy. As a solutions consultant at Dotdigital, but somebody who's been in the industry for the last 15 years, I get a ton of emails, as you might expect. I've worked with more than 2,000 brands over the last 15 years, and I've signed up for a lot of different newsletters. I also shop online like everybody else. So I'm getting hundreds of examples that are coming to my inbox every day. But I've also signed up for a lot of these brands with like multiple email addresses. Now, I'm really careful. I always make sure that all my purchasing is coming from one specific email address, because I want to be able to experience what the brand is doing with different customer segments and different types of calls to action. So a couple different examples that I want to point out here. We have Champion and we have Sugarfina. So in both of these, we have a buyer and a non-buyer example. This is the buyer, that's the non-buyer. I want to start with Sugarfina first. So you'll notice here we've got some nice, in the buyer example, holiday pre-sale examples going on. I have to admit, when this hit my inbox, I looked at it a little bit askew because this was like 2 days ago, and I'm like, man, like I barely have my Halloween decorations up, and you guys are hitting me with, an invitation to come and buy sweets for Christmas and stuff like that. But like setting the general messaging aside for a second, what I really loved about this was that it was consistent with what Sugarfina was doing with customer groups on the front end of their website. When you visit the Sugarfina website, or at least for me, they have me bucketed into a customer affinity group that is based around like my previous purchase history. They know that I have a high lifetime value with them, and they are giving me access to a pre-sale. For my other email address that I was using, we have a little bit more of a generalized example here. You notice we got a Halloween call to action on the very top. You click on that, it's taking you back to the generalized Sugarfina website. So this is a really good example of consistency. We are offering someone an experience on the website, and when I'm talking to them on another channel, like email for instance, I want to make sure that we're having a consistent experience and that I'm driving people to do the thing that I want them to do when they're visiting my website. Another example with Champion. We've got a couple different calls to action here, right? So this is the same sale. You wouldn't know it because the branding is completely different, but this is actually the same sale. What Champion has done here is they've taken a customer group, which is just simply recent purchasers. This is anyone who's made a purchase within the last 30 days. I'm a UNC alumnus. I took my daughter to her first UNC football game a couple weeks ago. I bought her a t-shirt. She's got a bright pink UNC Tar Heels t-shirt that I bought from Champion. What Champion is doing in this scenario with the call to action that they're providing me, where they're promoting the same sale but to different customer groups, is they are then doing additional segmentation within their marketing platform to say, not only do I want my recent purchasers, but based on that recent purchase history, do they fall into one of these specific groups, i.e. collegiate? I've just bought something from UNC. They're going to tailor this call to action to me based upon that information. For my generic email address that's coming out, it's just incentive based, and they're just trying to basically push you through to the website and hope that they can convert on you there. This is just like one example, but like customer groups is a really good one because darn near every single person that I know that's utilizing Adobe Commerce is utilizing customer groups in some way. And these are so powerful, and people tend to only think of them about like how I'm going to customize the front end of your website. Well, you need to make sure that your customer group data is flowing through into the other channels that you're working on so that you can not only respect it, as in the Sugarfina example, and have a consistent experience, but also build upon it, like with the Champion example. Let's move on. Gotta want it. Where am I clicking? There we go. All right, we did it. When you've worked in marketing automation, e-commerce, et cetera, as long as I have, you do tend to get a little like kind of myopic about things. So there's a couple of Dotdigital folks here that work with me in the front of the audience. And they will testify to what I'm about to talk to you, which is that I am very passionate about two things. I love abandoned carts, and I love talking about SMS as a channel. And if you don't believe me, this is my fantasy football team in the Dotdigital league, and where I am in first place, I might add. And we are, as abandoned injury carts, right? The reason that I am so passionate about talking about abandoned carts is because if you take all of the other, let's just triggered messaging. If you take all of the other triggered messaging that your brands are doing or the customers that you're working with are doing, et cetera, and I'm talking about like post-purchase campaigns, welcome series, browse recovery campaigns, et cetera, loyalty, so forth and so on, and you take all of the revenue that's tied to those various campaigns and you put it in a bucket, that bucket is not going to be as full as the bucket of revenue that's being driven from abandoned cart. There are a lot of different things out there in the marketing automation world that I tell my customers, like, yes, like you can get away with like set it and forget it, Abandoned carts is not one of them. And with the Adobe Commerce, a lot of folks are using the basic sort of like, concepts that are available within Adobe Commerce. It's a time-based setup essentially. So it's been that way since the original M2 came out. And it's, send a campaign after 10 minutes, send one after 30 minutes, send one like the next day or something like that. And first of all, I want to say, like, if anybody's doing that, like that's fine. It's better to do something with abandoned carts than it is to do nothing with abandoned carts. But if you are doing that and you find yourself maybe feeling like your abandoned cart series is a little bit lackluster, I would simply draw your eye to all of the rich and ridiculous information that is sitting in Adobe Commerce that you can take advantage of. So think about just like the concept of the cart itself. Somebody puts some items in a cart, they abandon it, etc. Well, I know because I have Adobe Commerce, I know what the value of that cart is. I know whether or not an incentive has been applied to it. I know potentially, depending on how far along the person got in the checkout process, where is it being shipped to? I know whether or not the items that are contained within the cart have low stock, high stock. I know whether or not those came from my spring release or my fall release. I know whether or not those are tied to a specific category of things that I want to be pushing, etc. When somebody abandons a cart, I have their personal information, right? So I have all of that rich order history that they may have generated with Adobe Commerce. I know what they previously purchased. I know how often they previously purchased. I know the categories that they previously like to purchase within. I know their customer lifetime value. I know what this person is worth to me. And on each individual cart itself, I also know kind of like what's going on with that cart. So a really common example, I've worked a lot with B2B customers that are sort of getting started with a B2C environment, right? They're doing some of these concepts for the first time. And like something you always see with abandoned carts in the B2B space is like they wiggle. So, people are using a lot of times in the B2B space carts as like a cart building tool. They're getting information from the various teams that they work with about like what they need to be purchasing. They're changing counts. They're adding in items, taking items out, et cetera. Adobe Commerce reflects all of this as events every single time a cart is changed. And so if I'm a B2B marketer and I know that somebody's been touching a cart recently, maybe I don't send anything to that person because they're still in the process of building out that cart. Or alternatively, if I'm a B2B marketer, probably only have maybe a couple thousand items within my product catalog. If I know that something is highly technical or highly variable or ends up being something that ends up being returned quite a bit, et cetera, that's an opportunity for me to adjust the call to action that I'm sending out to that person. Instead of saying, hey, come buy something, come finish building out your cart, et cetera, I'm saying, hey, here's the salesperson associated with you. Give them a call. Here's their email address. They can help you through the process of finishing this purchase if you need assistance, et cetera. There is so much information available about these carts within Adobe, or Magento, I should say, that can be taken advantage of to optimize these different types of campaigns. And yes, I want people to not only take the information and utilize it, but the simple secondary action has got to be you got to test these things, right? So test different calls to action, test different segmentation concepts, test different discounting and merchandising concepts, et cetera. Moving on to my second great love. So, if my passion is abandoned carts, my second great love is SMS and MMS as a channel. I want to do a quick thought experiment. I see several of you already have your phones out. Great job, you're ahead of the game. How many emails do you have unread in your inbox right now? 246,000. I have done this presentation a couple of times. That is absolutely the highest number I've ever heard. How many unread emails do you have in your inbox, sir? How many? Okay. I personally have 30,000 unread messages in my Gmail inbox. I'm not going to admit to how many I have in my work inbox because, like I said, I have colleagues here in the front that are waiting on responses from me. How many unread SMS messages do you have on your phone? Zero? 250,000 unread emails, 0 unread SMS messages. I have 2 unread SMS messages in my phone right now. One is from my mom, and the other one is from myself as a reminder to get back in touch with my mom. SMS is just a different beast when you think about the level of engagement that it drives and how people interact with it. The numbers are wild. If you spend most of your industry, or if you spend most of your time within this industry, like working in email, like I have, the things like the 98% read rate. Like within 10 minutes of being sent, 98% of people that have been sent a text message will have read it. It's 90% within the first 10 seconds. It buzzes, and we're conditioned to grab our phones, et cetera. The conversion rates are double what we're seeing in email. The average click-through rate, triple what we see from email. And look, I'm not saying like just take your email concepts and convert those directly into SMS. Like there's nuance that has to be brought into this channel, et cetera. But if you're using Adobe Commerce, there's a really sneaky, easy way to get started with SMS as a brand that I think a lot of people don't think about. So if you're familiar with like the concept of like email consent and stuff like that, you're probably familiar with the idea of like a transactional contact and a marketing contact. Transactional contact, that's somebody, we have their email address, but I can't send them any marketing stuff, but I can send them order confirmations or in the US, abandoned cart notifications, shipping notifications, et cetera, et cetera. In SMS, there is no real concept of this like division between a marketing and a transactional contact. With SMS, if you want to send somebody a transactional message, you still have to get them to opt into the channel, and the opt-in itself is essentially the same as the one that is for a marketing opt-in. Adobe Commerce, about 18 months ago, rolled out transactional support for SMS within the platform. It's 6 different triggers. It's an order notification, it's an order update, shipment notification, shipment update, invoicing information, etc. And the opt-in process is built directly into Adobe Commerce. It's essentially just adding another checkbox to the marketing consent fields during the checkout process. If you can get people to opt in to the SMS concepts around transactional, what you're doing is 2 different things. One, you're interacting with somebody on a channel that they've literally told you that they want to have a conversation with you on. 70% of people will opt into SMS when given the option. 2, you are building up an audience of marketable people. You can put these people, you can start with transactional messaging and then slowly over time bring in some other additional marketing concepts to these people and utilize that as a way to sort of like get your foot in the door on this channel. I talk about this and I think about a customer that we've worked with recently, Tract Optics. If you're not familiar with Tract Optics, it's a really cool story. This is a couple of guys who worked for Nikon for 20 years. And they specifically worked in like high-end lensing applications. It's really fun talking about them because like I don't think I've ever loved anything as much as these guys love talking about like apertures and like glass work, et cetera. But they caught the entrepreneurial bug. They decided that what they really wanted to do, this couple guys from Pennsylvania, was go out and make the best dang scopes that you could make for like hunting applications. They're both avid deer hunters. And so they went out and started Tract Optics. Now Tract Optics, it's a small company, right? They're selling a high-end product. They're probably only selling a few thousand of these a year because they cost several $1,000s, and you're kind of marketing to a very high-end hunter that needs to be utilizing them. And so they have a pretty small team. And so when we initially came to Tract Optics, and we were like, we really think you should be thinking about SMS as a channel for all these different reasons, 98% engagement rate, et cetera. They're like, look, we don't have the time. So we instead said, well, let's run a test. Let's start with some of the transactional stuff. Let's build up an audience of marketable people. And then let's test and see what happens when we just simply use SMS as a complementary aspect to your email programs. So what they did was they ran 5 campaigns, 5 emails that they were already planning on running. And they simply had the SMS messages go out supporting the sale that they were already promoting with an email. They spent $1,000 on the campaign. They generated $15,000 worth of return just from SMS. The campaign itself generated $40,000, which is a 3x conversion or a 3x improvement over similar sales and things that they had run. SMS works. You have to think about like the use case that you're utilizing it in, and sort of like when you're putting it out to people, you have to make sure you're doing a great job with consent, et cetera. But Adobe makes it really easy because of the transactional SMS opt-in and how we can use those people from a marketing standpoint going forward. One of the things that I found like most frustrating in sort of like the post-COVID world was rather, I should say, is that like I'll like find a product that I fall in love with, or my daughter will become obsessed with like some type of product that she has to have, and it's sold out. And we continue to see this with the retailers that we work with, where they're just continuing to have down the line issues with keeping things in stock, et cetera. The good news is that Adobe actually has solutions built for this directly into the platform. And these are going to be some of the most highest performing emails that you will send out. So when you think about a price stock alert or a price drop alert or something that's back in stock, et cetera, people are going to be engaging with these at roughly around a 65% open rate. And there's an additionally super high ROI that's associated with these as well. These are triggered campaigns that are basically baked directly into Adobe. You do not, once you have them up and running, you do not have to do anything other than say, like, this is the creative that I want sent out to these people. Adobe is doing the hard work of building this audience on your behalf, and then literally taking the next step of saying, and we'll handle like messaging to them as well, et cetera. It's kind of a no effort option for marketers that need to go out and drive ancillary revenue. And one of the things that I really like about it as well is that when you think about like triggered messaging from Adobe in general, transactional messaging. Adobe has more than 50 different transactional triggers that sit within the platform. Everything from those price stock alerts to the back in stock notifications I was talking about, but like password resets, account setups, et cetera, et cetera. And I can say this as a former Adobe guy. Working with the templates that Magento makes available directly within the platform is a very painful process. And if your customers are utilizing these templates that originally come bundled with Magento, or they've made light changes to them, et cetera, they probably don't look great. I can guarantee you that they don't look anything like the marketing messaging that they're sending out, for instance. They're frustrating, they're difficult to use, there's no WYSIWYG editor built into it, you gotta come in, build out with the code, et cetera, et cetera. So the nice thing is if you are using a third-party platform, like a Dotdigital, for instance, but also other platforms, et cetera, most of these folks have support for the transactional triggers that exist within Magento. They may not support all 50 like we do, but they will support things like an order confirmation. A lot of times they'll support things like shipping notifications, et cetera. And this is important for a couple different reasons. One, coming back to consistency in the Coca-Cola example, doesn't matter where I'm seeing that Coca-Cola logo, it's the same dang logo every single time I see it. Every time we're talking to our customers, especially after they've just bought something with them, I want to be having a consistent branded experience with them. I want my order confirmation emails to look just as good as my marketing emails, and I want those to look just as good as my abandoned cart emails, et cetera, et cetera. The second piece here is that if you're using Magento or Adobe Commerce to send out your transactional messages, you are kind of missing out on the rising tide that lifts all boat concept around transactional messages. The Gmails, the Hotmails, the Yahoos of the world, they are utilizing engagement as their primary marker of whether or not they're going to send something through to the inbox. What are the most engaged with emails that you send? Order confirmations, password resets, those types of concepts. If you have all of that coming from the same platform that is sending your marketing communications, you will have an overall lift in not only deliverability, but also inbox placement. A few different examples here of like different customers that I really like the experience that they have around their transactional messaging. So I know that I'm standing between you guys and lunch, so I just want to like kind of wrap it up a little bit. You know, again, there's so much information that's available within Adobe Commerce, within Magento as a platform. All of the use cases I've spoken about here today, I mean, this is kind of the low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of other stuff. I could have done 5 more, 10 more, et cetera, around like, you know, more advanced strategies and use cases. But if you're not at least doing these 5 things and doing them really well and taking advantage of that data, then your customers are selling themselves short. And as agencies, you're selling yourself short in terms of being able to provide that really awesome feedback to them around like what's going to drive things. And that's why Adobe is such a goldmine. So I want to pause here for a second. Would love to open it up to any questions that anyone has, or feedback, or you can also just get off the stage and let us get to lunch, like whatever you guys want to do. Any questions? Yes.
A lot of the screenshots you showed, like the sign up for bracelets, is that just commerce or is that in CE as well?
So it's easier to find. I didn't want to just show Dotdigital companies, so I kind of thought that was cheating. Some of those are Dotdigital companies, so I can pull it directly from within their platform. But I wanted to show a wide variety of different examples. It's easier to find e-commerce examples than it is B2B commerce examples. But all of the use cases I was just talking about are actually just as applicable for B2B as they are for like B2C. I would absolutely recommend every single one of those. Sorry.
So yeah, my question was, like you said, Adobe added, and you had a screenshot of the admin panel with like the SMS triggers.
Yes.
Is that admin panel, is that available in CE? Because I haven't seen it there yet.
It's in I want to say like 2.41 and up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's available for B2B and B2C. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate y'all's time today, and I hope you guys enjoy the next session that's coming up.